welcome back. So this is going to be shorter than the other one. And in this capsule, we will talk about uncertainty, which is what we alluded to many times already. What does it mean to have an uncertain interest? Right? And I'll repeat the same thing just very briefly, just to make sure that they're clear. Uncertainty does not mean uncertainty as the timing, right? So it does not mean that that you cannot be uncertain as to when it will happen. It's not uncertainty. If it's certain that it will happen, like a life estate, but it's not certain when, then, right, it is not uncertain. So that's uncertainty as to timing. And uncertainty does not mean that you have to have, as we said earlier, possession. Because you can have, I'm very bad at stating myself today, as you can see, you can have uncertainty as, a non-possessory interest. And that's the nature of the interest. So we said if you if you rent out your house, then you have a non-possessory interest. Because you can have non-possessory property interest, for example, a right of reversion, as we said, or a remainder interest, is a non-possessory interest. So you get possession later on. In the meantime, you still have a right because it's certain. It's after a life estate, which is certain to end, just not certain when, right? You have a non-possessory interest. Then when A dies, you get possession, you have a possessory interest. So it does not mean either possession. Uncertainty means actual uncertainty. So uncertainty, as we said, is to happening. So it can be uncertain as to timing, but not as to happening. And uncertainty as to the person who will get it. And these are the two kinds of situations where the interest cannot be present and therefore certain. So, if you have a life estate and it ends, you know it will end, you give the rest to B. B has an interest that is certain and therefore that is present. As we said multiple times, means they can go to court and sue the person who has a life estate if they are doing anything that is prejudicial to their future interest, their interest of future possession. If it's something else, if it's uncertain as to happening, then it is uncertain and it's not present. The best example is a condition precedent. If she finishes law school, that is not just uncertain as to timing, it's uncertain as to happening. You don't know if she will ever finish law school. She might not. Therefore, the interest is subject to a condition precedent. It's always that way, right? And she only gets the interest if it happens. Therefore, presently, she does not have anything. Because it says she'll get a fee simple if she finishes law school. This is not like the right of reversion. She doesn't have possession or something, a fee simple later on for sure, because it's not for sure. She might get nothing. And because of how it's phrased, to get it, she needs to meet the condition. Therefore, it is neither certain nor present. She doesn't have a fee simple, because to get it, she has to meet the condition. She hasn't yet. So she doesn't have a fee simple. She doesn't have a future entitlement to a fee simple because it's uncertain. So it's neither certain nor present if it's a condition precedent. In contrast, if you have a condition subsequent, you can have uncertainty, but not uncertainty as to her interest. So if it says to her for life, but, or if, right, again, doesn't matter, when or if she conceives illegitimate children, then the person, the grantor, has something. Then her interest is certain and present, because it's subject to a condition subsequent. It's not she might get it or not if she meets the condition. She has it until maybe she doesn't meet the condition. So now she has a present estate. It's just subject to a condition that means she might lose it in the future. That's the nature of a condition subsequent. The nature of a condition subsequent is it happens later, makes you lose it. Well, if it makes you lose it, it means you have it in the first place. So she has a life estate, or fee simple, whatever it is. Might lose it later, but now she has it. The condition only serves to take it away. And that might be uncertain as to happening, but her estate is present and certain. She does have a life estate now. And she has it now. We just don't know if she'll lose it in the future. So, if it's, again, subject to a condition subsequent, it's present and certain, not if it's subject to a condition precedent. In contrast, and something we talked about, the interest of the other person, the person who gets whatever is left if she has illegitimate children. We said if it's determinable, just because of the way it's phrased, it's the only thing that matters. Just because of the way it's phrased, because it's phrased as a certainty, she loses it automatically, just because of the words that were used. And you can review last week, I won't repeat it again, I think it's getting annoying. So it's determinable. When she conceives illegitimate children, she'll lose it. The way this operates in law is as soon as it happens, she loses it. It's automatic. The other person doesn't have to do anything. They just get it back. Magically, she loses it, he gets it. Of course, if she stays there, he'll have to sue to kick her out. But she is there without a right because the right was transferred automatically. So it happens then. And it's uncertain until it happens, of course. But not because of the way it's phrased, so we ignore that. In contrast, if it's defeasible, it's not automatic. So just because of words that were used, if she conceives illegitimate children, I may re-enter. The right to re-enter is not automatic. So she keeps her estate until you show up and say, hey, you met the condition, I want it back. It's not automatic. Therefore, right, that is uncertain, the other portion of it. Not her estate, that's present, and it's certain. The right to re-enter is, because of the if, right, it is not present nor certain. And we'll see why that specifically matters next week. Okay, so as we said, right, again, possession does not mean that you don't have, not having possession doesn't mean that you don't have an interest, right? And so the two situations are where it is uncertain. First, it's subject to an event which is uncertain as to happening, such as a condition precedent. Second, it's uncertain as to who. So you can have, for example, right, to A for life, remainder to B's children when A dies. Otherwise, in the traditional formulation of that, it would be simply a life estate and a right of reversion. To A for life, remainder to B. Well, A has a life estate, B has a right of reversion again, or a remainder interest because it's a third party, just the same thing, which is a right to get the property back when A dies. That right is present. It is a present right to future possession. In my example, though, we don't know who B is. I said to A for life, remainder to B's children when A dies. You don't know, right? Now A gets a life estate. That is present and certain. The rest of it, the remainder interest, is not certain. Why? Because you can't tell yet if the person's got 3 children. Some of them might die. And because entitlement to the interest is determined at the end of, I can't recall what my example is, but say it's the A for life, right? Remainder to B's children when A dies. Put it that way. So when A dies, then you count the kids and you give it to them. Once you, at the beginning, you don't know. You have to wait until A dies. Right? B might get more children. Some of the existing children might die. So you can't give it to them now. You just don't know how many there will be. And you don't even know who they will be when A dies. Therefore, the interest, which otherwise would just be a right of reversion, which would be present and certain, is uncertain. Because it is, right, uncertain as to who will get it. Therefore, it cannot vest yet. Because you don't know who will get it. And that's true of the people who aren't born yet, who you can't give it to. It's also true of the people who are born, because they might die in the meantime, and then they won't get their interest. In both cases, though, it's uncertain because it might never happen. So she might never go to law school. Same thing there. The who, you don't know. The people who are alive might never get it because they might die before and therefore not get the interest. And these are, right, you're mentioned 3 at page 279, but there's really 2, right? First, uncertainty as to happening. Second, uncertainty as to who, which can be uncertainty as to, first, the person doesn't exist yet, isn't born, or the class of persons isn't determined, which is both uncertainty as to who. So, for example, you might say to A's child. Well, if A doesn't have a child, then the identity of the person isn't known. My example is the second version. I said to B's children, when A dies. Again, you don't know who it is. Some of them aren't in existence, some of them are, but they might not get it because they might die in the meantime. This is the other example. Both of these are, right, uncertainty as to who. So, book breaks it down to 79 into 3 categories, but the latter 2 are uncertainty as to the identity of the person who vests, who gets it. Again, same rule in favor of early vesting is going to apply. So, if it's not clear, the court will favor an interest that is not uncertain. So, if the interpretation of either of those isn't clear, for example, I told you, if it's not clear if it's a condition precedent or subsequent, because it's poorly drafted, the court will favor the condition subsequent, because it favors early vesting. So the person gets a life estate if she finishes law school. If it's not clear, right, if finishing law school means she gets it or loses it, the court will favor her losing it. That's early vesting, because then it's a condition subsequent. She gets an estate, it's vested, that's early vesting, and loses it if something happens. Early vesting, she gets it, subject to the condition, maybe taking it away later on. The other option would be she has to finish law school to get it. That's not early vesting, because she doesn't get it until the condition's met. In the meantime, she has nothing. So the court will favor early vesting and the minimization of uncertainty, but of course only when it is not clear. And again, you have to remember that all that, right, always exists within the framework of determinable versus defeasible interests that we saw last week. Therefore, if a condition is invalidated one way or the other, on a determinable estate, it cancels the entire estate because it's a whole. On a defeasible estate, only the condition is canceled and doesn't mean that the interest itself will be. Okay, we will pause there for this week. Hopefully that was simpler than the material for last week.